Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for another edition of Digital Soul Presents. I am very honored to have one of my good pals on today, a multi-talented producer, keyboardist, arranger, performer, also a current member of the time. My brother Christopher Troy is in the house. What it do, my brother?
My brother, it's so good to be here. And I know it took a while for this to happen, but every time I see you at a show, I say, hey, it'll be worth the wait. There you go.
Absolutely. And we're here, man. We're
Yes, so we're here.
here. Man, first of all, man, I've caught you in your home studio, better known as Traham Music, Traham Studios there.
Yeah.
Uh, I see behind you, you got some gear. Man, let's take a quick tour and see what's popping behind you, man. What you got?
Okay.
What you working with back there, man?
Well, I'm still old school. So I'm rocking the Studer 24 track. It's actually an A80 Mark IV.
Man,
It's like the last version that they made of the skinny 24 track. And I have the matching half inch that I still mix down my records to this, and then I go digital because it's just that warmth of analog that makes it sound like a record's supposed to sound like.
mm.
Yeah.
So you still splicing tape and all that?
Well, no, I that's how I learned how to edit back in the day,
Yeah,
splice and
yeah,
tape. But I know how to splice,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I do all my edits in Pro Tools, and we've got the digital mixer over here. I run two digital mixers. The digital 8 bus is basically my interface for my tracking and my live room. So that's also the interface for my 24 track tape machine. And a lot of the Pro Tools stuff I do on my digital console, which
Mm.
is a Behringer DDX 3216, and it's about to get replaced by either the Wing or the Producer series from the X32 of Behringer. Yeah. So
Nice.
this room basically is my control room and my composing room. So over here we've got a rack of keyboards, synth modules, and when you come over,
OGs
we'll
back
we'll go
there.
in we'll go in depth over that. But we've got one of my mini moogs right there, and hip hop producers know what the MPC 2000
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And you'll see a lot of vintage keys in this place. Standard stuff like the Yamaha motif. And this is actually a vintage Yamaha CE 20 from the 80s. I was doing some old school stuff. And this is the drum machine of drum machines, the Lin.
Oh man,
Yeah.
the
Now, the
real
cool thing
deal.
about this Lin drum is that it has all the LM1 sounds, which is the Prince library. Bruce Forad at Forad Music or Forad Electronics, he keeps me rolling. And I'm going to see Bruce a little later on after this podcast, picking up another drum machine from Bruce.
Oh,
Shout out, y'all know who Forad is, Bruce Forad. He is the MPC guy. He does everybody's drum machine here in LA, all the
cool,
rappers.
cool.
All
Shout out to
right, so listen,
Bruce.
I'm going to be quick about this because you're going to come over to the studio and then we'll do a real tour and we'll
Yeah,
even get into
yeah,
the tape vault, which is another thing.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely.
okay, so over here we have a lot of old school
Oh,
rack gear.
you got some racks there. Yeah,
Yeah, I still use a lot of old school processing, like my lexicon reverbs and um, my harmonizers and things like that. But right now we're going to go into the live room, and this is where we track drums. There we go. We got some light in. So we do drum tracking here and guitar tracking. And if I have to, I'll move stuff out where we can have a live choir in here. I've even tracked a choir.
nice.
And vintage keys like the Wurlitzer, the Juno 60. All you gearheads know what that is.
Yeah,
Uh,
man. Classic stuff.
and this is
So
one
you
of the
got the
Rodes I used to
Oberheim back
play with,
there.
yeah, Oberheim and a
Yeah.
Rhodes from Teena Marie. She has the matching Rhodes. There were two Rhodes that were done like this.
Mm.
That was from my my side hustle, which was Troy's Rhodes service. So I used to rebuild Fender Rhodes pianos and refabricate clavinets and things like that.
Ah,
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. We have a Hammond A100.
ooh, the
This is a
clavinet.
really, yeah, the clavinet's there, the D6. But
Mm,
the Hammond, man, I was so blessed to be at the right place at the right time. This was one of Jimmy Smith's 1960, I'm sorry, 1959 practice organs that
wow.
he had at a house in Inglewood. And I was at the right place at the right time, purchased that.
What?
Yeah.
That was Jimmy Smith's?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Amazing.
we
The
got the drum kit
monster.
over there. And basically, the room was built to sound much bigger than it is. It's got these beautiful vaulted ceilings, you know. But listen, when you come over, we'll spend some time going through the rooms and things like that. Um,
Amazing.
one last spot I want to show you is the where I record my grand piano. There we go. So it's Yamaha
Mm.
C series.
Oh, isn't she pretty?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Well, when you're making beautiful music, you got to have a pretty piano.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's enough about that. And like I said, we'll get to the tape vault and we'll come back and listen to some
Yeah, man, good stuff. You guys see that?
masters.
That's gear, man.
Yeah, well, I've been really blessed, man. And to me, when things are bought and paid for, you own it, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your first like bug into like buying gear and just starting to say, I'm okay, I'm gonna start to collect it and just keep it? Like when did that start to really just happen?
Well, I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I
Mm.
grew up in a very musical neighborhood. So I guess it was junior high school. My mom took me to see the Captain and Tennille. I must
Mm.
have been 9 or 10. She really wanted to see them, but she took me with her. And I saw Daryl Dragon with the captain's hat on, and he was surrounded by keyboards just everywhere, everywhere. And just the cool vibe that he had. Um, and next, it was Stevie Wonder. You know, I had an uncle that owned a record store, so he would get promotional tickets, and he took me to see Stevie Wonder, and that was
Wow.
great. You know, and my aunt, who was married to that uncle, was kind of a hippie, and she turned me on to this Elton John album entitled Elton John, which was his second album. The keyboards and the string arrangements, and there was a brother in the band that was actually his first producer. A lot of people don't know this, but the guitar player that was playing with Elton John in those golden years, his name was Caleb Quay, and he's a black man from England. He was Elton John's first producer and basically got Elton his record deal and his publishing deal because he worked at Dick James Music. So all of these were early influences. Like when I had my little Fisher Price record player,
Yeah.
I was listening to all these records, and it was just the sounds of the keyboards, and I didn't even know how to pronounce Moog or Moog or what ARP was. So
Mm.
I just started asking questions, and I want to make those sounds, you know. So I think I got my first real synthesizer from a pawn shop. I paid $300 for an ARP. Uh, so that was my first real synthesizer, and got a Korg MS-20. All these were monophonics, but around junior high school, I got into the Rhodes and the Wurlitzer, and my first polyphonic keyboard, which was a Hohner string performer. So, you know, a lot of these keyboards were used keyboards and throwaways because around that time when I was a kid, like in junior high school, they came out with a keyboard called the DX7. So a lot of the professional musicians were selling and pawning their ARPs, Moogs, and keyboards like that and clavinets because the DX7 was the first portable keyboard that had polyphony. You could play chords and stuff on it but it was lightweight and you could carry it under your arm and it could do the work of 3 or 4 keyboards. So when they were upgrading to the DX7, I was scooping up all the old analog keyboards, you know, and some of these made it from Houston, like this particular Mini Moog, man. I got that when I think I was 13 or 14, and it made it all the way to here to LA.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
interesting. And that DX7, man, you hear that on a large bulk of 80s recordings. A lot of people use that machine there.
That's right. Even Prince was using it back.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
couldn't even afford a DX7. I had to get one of those low rent ones, like it was called the DX21, which had a shorter keyboard and it played some of the sounds, but not as rich because it didn't have as many operators.
Mm,
Or I guess you could say operators are like harmonic oscillators. The sound wasn't as rich as the DX7, but I got a DX7 when I was playing with Zac Harmon. Actually, Zac Harmon, my songwriting partner, he had a DX7. So we started working with each other. It's like, yeah, this is nice. I like this.
yeah. Very cool, very cool. And this is like in junior high, high school, getting your chops home, trying out different keyboards, and getting some of those early sounds that you were hearing on some of those early records.
Man, trying to recreate those Stevie Wonder sounds,
Yeah.
uh, fulfilling this first finale and talking book.
Oh man.
Oh my God. That's like going to, that's like pre-med, you
Yeah.
and then when the songs in the Key of Life came out, yeah, oh, it
Yeah.
was over. I still get shivers thinking about when I was a little kid. By that time, I had a nice stereo, but I lived with my grandparents, so I had to put the speakers like up to my ears. I couldn't even afford a good pair of headphones, so I would listen at a very low volume, man, and just try to pick out all those keyboard parts.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned specifically those two albums, Fulfilling This First Finale and Talking Book. And then also another one for me is Intervisions, like that little period from like 72 to like 75. Uh,
Yeah.
I was raised on those records too, so I remember being a small child and my parents usually playing those albums really, really loud. And I remember hearing those sounds as well as a kid, and the Moog and all that. You can feel it, the
Yes.
floor. It was so like that was like an 808 before 808 existed.
Yeah.
Like when I was a
Yeah.
kid, I would hear that. And then I had the opportunity to meet Stevie about a year ago. And I actually got down on one knee because he was sitting down. I actually told him, I said, you know what? I felt your music as a kid before I knew even what those sounds were because I used to feel it through the floor. Like, especially songs like They Won't Go When I Go and things like that.
Oh yeah.
You can really feel, the reverb of his Moog and the keys and the rolls. And it's amazing stuff still to this day.
You're so right, man. And on into that Songs in the Key of Life album, a lot of kids don't realize this because if they get the vinyl, thank God kids are getting back in the vinyl. But if they get to the vinyl, it was not just a double album. It had, I believe, 245s in there also.
Hmm.
I believe one of them was Saturn and one of them was Mama's Call, where he's just doing this beautiful. I mean, Toots Tillman would have been proud. I'm sure he was because
Yeah,
Toots and Stevie did play
yeah.
together. But the way he phrased that harmonica, man, and Stevie, oh man, you got to make me break this out.
What you got, man? What you got?
Influenced me so much on harmonica, dude. He was on the Mike Douglas show, and he pulled out his Hohner chromatic,
Mm,
and he played Alfie. And man, I'm telling you, when he played that sweet vibrato, and he just had such a beautiful tone.
yeah.
Um, I got to get my harmonica chops up. But
but
yeah,
you
I,
but you
I
got
played.
one, man. You got one.
Yeah, I played the little harmonica when I was coming up.
Yeah.
Uh, but all the keyboard stuff I love to play. Harmonica, accordion. Yes, I played accordion. I grew up in a Creole family, and it's like everybody had an accordion back in the day.
Yeah. I was gonna say it must be the southern roots there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, just ask anything you want to know.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And I know you mentioned your brother Zac Harmon pretty much earlier. You guys have been brothers since the beginning of time, man, and you guys have started an early relationship many decades ago. Talk a little bit about coming into Zac Harmon's life and him coming into your life and starting a musical relationship.
Yeah. Well, as a starving musician, you got to understand this one thing. What do you call a musician that doesn't have a girlfriend? Homeless. So I dated this beautiful young lady, and she's no longer with us, but she's up there singing with the angels. She was a vocalist named Pan Alexander. Her full name was Sandra Pan Alexander. And she was the most beautiful woman I've seen in LA. And here I am, this, young hick from Houston, Texas. So we got a friendship when we started working with each other on some gigs. And she was doing a session. And, after dating, we moved in together. And she was doing a session at Zac Harmon's garage studio. And I want to go home because I had been working that day and it was late. It was like after midnight. And Zac said, let me just play this one more keyboard part and then she could do her vocal. And I said, dude, I know what you're trying to do. Let me go ahead and play it. And I knocked it out real quick. And she did her vocal. And before we left, he was saying, hey, man, I really like your playing. You should come over. I got some things going on. So we exchanged info and I went back to his place. And he had this group that he was putting together, and they were just signed to Atlantic Records through Sylvia Rohn. And that group was called Troop. So Troop was the first group here in LA that I wrote and produced for. Yeah.
Pasadena's finest.
Pasadena's finest. Yep.
Yeah,
And the boys are still out there doing some things.
yeah. And
But we,
that was that well it still is a classic album. I'm not the attitude. I'm not soup. All that stuff
oh
on it.
yeah.
Spread my wings. Classic album, man.
Yeah. But Zach was doing stuff like you know, getting their harmony arrangements together. And that first album also had Chucky Booker on it
Hmm.
and Timmy Gatlin. And also, I believe Joyce Irby did something on that album.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zach had Young Girl on there. And that was the first group that I was musical director for. So I was their producer, musical director. And, you know, interesting story with Troop. Everything can be a blessing or a test. And I'm just going to go on and you cut me off when you need to.
Oh, go for it.
But Troop was working with a choreographer, and that choreographer was the same choreographer that was working with Michael Jackson during the Bad album.
Hmm.
And in fact, his name is Barry Lather. We owe a great deal of thanks to Barry Lather because when Barry was warming up with Michael Jackson, in the rehearsal room, Michael heard these tracks and he said, "Oh man, Barry, what is that? I really like that." And he said, "Well, that's a group I'm choreographing. It's called Troop." But what? Who did the music? These cats I know called Zac Harmon and Christopher Troy. Because we had the first single off of the next album. And he said, "Oh, I want to meet those guys." And I'll cut the story short. He ended up signing us to ATV Music as writers. So that was, the music publishing company that he bought when it was going up for auction that held all the Beatles songs and a lot of the great 50s rock and roll songs. So, one of the ways that he wanted to keep it alive is get new contemporary writers, and Zach and I were a pair of his writers. And there were some great people during that year. I think Derek Edmondson and Derek Allen, DOA, were one of the writers, and a
Yeah,
few other people that had some hits out there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, I did notice too, man, because that time period. I know you mentioned Troop was one of the first ones that you got to produce. I know it was like late 88, 89, somewhere around there. But
Right.
I know, man, that like I realize now, like a lot of the CDs and stuff that I have, the Karyn Whites, the Five Stars, the Alexander O'Neills, like there was a span between like 90 and 95. Like you were extremely busy.
We were extremely busy and extremely blessed.
Yeah, you guys were
Um,
busy.
there were a couple of years that Zach and I had written and produced, well, anything that we were on as far as an album. We were pretty much getting the first singles and sometimes the first and second single. Um, but there was one time, and thank God I got all of the trade magazines because people don't even believe that. But there were years I'm talking about, like you said, from maybe 89 to 95, maybe, where every week and every month we had a song that was either in the top 10 or the top five, and definitely the Hot 100.
Yeah.
In other words, there were years that we were always on the charts.
Hmm.
And that was such a blessing, man. We were really grateful, but we worked really hard.
Yeah. How do you get to work? Like do you guys just get called, or I mean, let's put it this way. So hadn't Troop had not had the success with the song that you guys did, do you think that it may have went a little bit different, or do you think that was because of the Troop song that it just kind of evolved from that, or how did you guys get
Well,
called?
the whole troop thing, it was just a perfect alignment because
Mm,
Troop, those guys could sing and dance their asses off. They were like
yeah,
the first boy group, a boy band that they later named it, that would sing and dance and just really entertain, great harmonies. And those boys were doing it live. They weren't tracking
yeah.
because when Troop was out, that was like really before tracking technology took off, you
Hmm.
know. But Troop got us in touch with Michael. Michael got us in touch, with Quincy and Clarence Avant, and that turned into Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and that turned us on into a bunch of different artists that we were working with. But being signed to ATV, you know, um, our contract said yes, you got to write 30 songs a year, and if you place 15, that's great. But we were placing like 30 to 35 songs a year and writing maybe 80 for the catalog per year.
Yeah,
And it was the machine that helped us. The same kind of machine that helps somebody like a Beyonce or an Usher or a Bruno Mars make it. There's so many people that are in the cuts that's just grinding out. If you produce your music, you've got people that are shopping it, calling to make meetings and
yeah,
stuff. I mean, we were so blessed. We were meeting with Clive Davis and all these people, but I think the whole flight time connection, even to what I'm doing now, just was such a blessing.
yeah,
But we were able to produce, like you said, Alexander O'Neill, Sherelle, um, Black Uhuru, and um, Larry Springfield, Rhonda Clark. A lot of these acts were related to Taboo and A&M Records, you know.
yeah. Taboo Records, man, is legendary. Of course, what Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's imprint, but also spearheaded by Clarence Avant. If you don't mind, talk a little bit about the legend that is Clarence Avant, since he is no longer here. Talk a little bit about this amazing man and his talent, as far as finding talent as well.
Yes. Well, Clarence knew how to parlay one thing into the other, and he taught us a lot of great lessons. Those that knew Clarence probably heard, this, and I will not do any of the profanity that he would use, but I'll paraphrase it. He was saying, you know, y'all could do one of two things to be successful in the music industry. Y'all or the entertainment industry. Y'all could learn how to tap dance or learn how to count. And what he was talking about was make sure you understand what you're worth, ask for what you're worth, and get what you're worth. And in the long run, make sure it's coming in when it needs to come in. Or you could just be one of these people that are basically tap dancing and tapping around the industry and letting someone else do all that for them. But the people that are doing it for you are the people that are getting all the money, you know.
Yeah.
And the other thing he said, you got to always make sure you're right with the IRS. Pay your taxes. You know, if they go after national treasures like Sammy Davis Jr. and Willie Nelson, you know, just think what they'll go after you two penny any MFs or whatever you can imagine him saying. But yeah, they were great lessons, and Clarence opened the door for us to work with a lot of his acts on the roster, and everybody that Jimmy and Terry worked with through that, except for the SOS band, we were able to do that, and um, we even got a chance to work at Flight Time during the period we were working on, some records out there, and next time I see Jam, I didn't do it when we were at the Taste of Minneapolis because everything was going so fast. But man, you got to understand, back in the day, I was so young, and imitation is a form of flattery. There was this one track that we were doing for Alex, and I must have just recreated that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis thing. And I was playing it back for a couple of friends, and I was so embarrassed by it. And even Clarence said, y'all sound too much like Jimmy and Terry. But we got our own vibe going on after
Yeah,
that. It was like, a period that I was just trying to honor those brothers.
yeah,
And, some of my tracks were just too much like them.
yeah. Capturing
But
that sound.
Jimmy, if you're listening to this, I love you. And then Terry, I love y'all and thank y'all for the opportunity and all that you gave us. And please forgive me for just being on your coattail too much. It was a form of flattery.
Yeah, man. Hey, you got to
But another thing about Jimmy
where,
and
man.
Terry, they were very generous, not just with studio time, but there was a very special board from Studio a mixing console that they had mixed uh, all the early Flight Time hits on Janet Jackson and Alex's stuff, and it was a Harrison Series 4 uh, console with automation. Now, Zac and I were blessed with a Harrison console before we even met Jimmy and Terry, but it didn't have any automation. And it was just a good tracking board. So I couldn't do any computer mixing on it. But the things that I learned from Steve Hodge over there at Flight Time was so incredible. And when Terry was trying to replace that board with the Series 10, which was like, something from another galaxy, like a Star Trek console, I said, hey, I'd like to get this board. He cut us a really good deal, and we were able to have the board shipped from Flight Time to a studio we were building in LA. Actually, we had the studio built, but we expanded the room to accommodate, you know, the computers. And back then, you had to have a whole room for a computer, you know, and you had to keep it air conditioned. But we were able to buy that famous board, and I learned how to mix on that board. So that was a great investment, and I thank those brothers for allowing us to purchase that very historic board.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Who would you say was probably the most fun to produce and record during that period?
Oh man. Um, I'd say okay. There was a group, and that was our Grammy nomination. It was Black Uhuru, very famous reggae group. I remember when I met these guys, and I'm still young, and I had never been to Jamaica, but I've had what I thought was Jamaican food. And one of the original members came up to me and Zach, and they spoke with a very heavy Jamaican patois. It was hard to understand them. And we all exchanged names and everything. And then the guy, uh, you know, well, there was Dougie, and two of the other brothers, and one of them said, "Hi," shook my hand and said, "Hi, me name God." And I said, "Hi, pleased to meet you. I'm Christopher Troy." And I was just stunned. And he said, "Yes, just call me God. Call me God." And after they left, I said, "Wow, that brother's so deep." He said his name is God, but it's actually Garth. But you couldn't understand him with the patois, the heavy Jamaican accent. But those guys were great to work with, man. I learned so much about another culture that I thought I knew about. And through that situation, we ended up meeting some people that were heavily entwined in Bob Marley's career.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we ended up remixing one of Bob Marley's songs. And this was early technology where you could take a slow song and put it through the computer and speed it up, or a fast song and slow it down. And we're on one of these compilations, which also got a lot of notoriety. It was the Legend series, and the song is "What Goes Around Comes Around." So it was really fun to hear, Bob Marley's vocal isolated and, come up with some music because it was just him, the guitar, and I3 behind him singing backgrounds.
Wow.
And that was just incredible. That's the kind of stuff that's in the tape vault. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, brother, John,
Yeah.
you got to come through one day.
Yeah. That sounds interesting as I don't know what,
Yeah.
man. I'm definitely intrigued, man.
All right. All right. Cool. Cool.
Yeah. Now, I saw something that caught my attention too that a little earlier. What is your connection with Carl Lewis? Talk a little bit about
Oh
your
my
background
God.
on that. Uh-oh.
Okay. I'll be as quick as the story as I can.
Knock yourself
Uh,
out, man.
Carl Lewis lived in Houston, and he, went to the University of Houston, and he was a big track star. This is in 1984, I believe, right after the LA Olympics. Endorsements everywhere. Carl was a big star.
Mhm.
And he had these two uh, huge, I believe they were either Rottweilers or Doberman Pinschers, I forget, but they were black dogs. And they broke through the patio door at Carl's house, and they were bleeding. They had cut an artery, and these dogs were about to die. So my father was a very prominent veterinarian in Houston,
Mm.
Texas. Uh, and Carl sought their help because, he was also taking care of people like, all these celebrities that were in Houston. He would take care of their pets. So Carl brought these dogs over, and my dad. I used to work at the animal clinic, but I wasn't there that day. I was probably at the high school for the performing arts, which is, where a lot of these Texas musicians came from. So he said, you should meet my son. He's a very talented, songwriter and keyboardist, and he's getting into recording. So Carl must have mentioned to my dad that, my dad probably asked, "So what are you going to do next now that you did the Olympics?" Uh, he said, "I want to try singing." So Carl Lewis and I and another brother that you might know, they call him Panther, Mark Felton. He was one of my friends in a band that we had back in Houston, Texas. And, uh, we started working with Carl Lewis. And one of the first things that I did with Carl was the Star Spangled Banner. I would rehearse it with him. And let's just say the rehearsals went a little bit better than some of the performances that happened later on that were captured on videotape for infinity and beyond. So somebody had just remixed Carl singing because Carl did it a cappella
Right.
and he had remixed it. I don't know who this cat is, but it's pretty interesting. So every time Carl changed keys, he would change keys like he was in the gospel church and he put piano and organ behind it. You
Oh
know.
my goodness.
So yeah, that was my first professional recording, even before Troop, because I was still living in Houston.
Yeah.
So Carl had a hookup with an attorney here in LA, and they got with a Japanese record label, and Carl was golden in Japan.
Mm.
So we did a 8-song album on Carl Lewis, and part of my payment was doing an EP on my band, which was called Electric Storm. We were kind of like an Earth, Wind, and Fire, Ramsey Lewis kind of, Crusaders kind of vibe, where
Okay.
it's basically jazz, but you had some vocals in it too.
Okay.
Really great songs, and it's out there. It's a collector's item though. But yeah, that was my connection with Carl. So once
Nice.
we got a taste of LA, and then we toured Japan doing television shows like their version of American Bandstand and Solid Gold. We were performing live on the show with Carl Lewis, you know.
Yeah.
Videotapes are out there on YouTube. You might be able to
Yeah.
see. But that is what got me and my partner Mark at the time to move out to LA because we got a chance to see LA. And it's like, yeah, we're kind of outgrowing Houston. Let's try that.
Mm.
So, not that I regret leaving college, but I did 2 years at University of St. Thomas, and then it was time to go back to LA or
Yeah.
go out to LA.
Yeah. You had to expand, man. See what's out there for you.
Yeah, yeah. That's the Carl Lewis connection. And
Yeah.
Carl and I, we spoke, maybe around the holidays last year.
Oh, okay,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, he's coaching at U of H, you
Very
know.
cool. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
cool. You still keep in contact with him, man. Awesome, man.
yeah. Not as
Yeah.
much as I should, but yeah. Just letting him know we're alive.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, another thing I found interesting too, man, and it's part of your career, man. You've also took time to become a music director at Cal State Long Beach. As far as music direction, how did you get involved in doing that?
I had a background in musical theater. The one thing at the High School for the Performing and Visual Arts in Houston, Texas, you have to take a interim semester where you're studying an art that you're not related to. So they put me into theater, and I did a musical. I was actually in the cast of the musical, but uh, other than singing and dancing, I was really checking out what the musical director was doing, and I found that fascinating. And then there was a musical theater group in Houston, Texas, while I was in high school called the Kuumba House, and they were putting on plays, and they needed someone to write some music to this play. And I remember one of the first plays that I did was "How Do You Love a Black Woman," and the next one was "The Harlem Grill." And these were really, really well acted plays. And in fact, a lot of people left Houston and went on to be, big time actors and everything. But
Mm.
anyway, so that got my, appetite wet for musical theater.
Yeah.
And I love directing. Um, so when I moved out here into LA, we were still doing some light musical theater. There was another person who I met, uh, well, Denise Jackson Surrett, and she was the sister of Munyungo Jackson, and their family had a theater production company where the mother would, put on these wonderful plays and things like that.
Mhm.
So she had hired me as musical director because she knew I was, working with Munyungo. And Zach and I worked on one of her plays, and I think it turned into another one. And we decided to write a play together, which is still in the works, but it's going to be a musical. But anyway, fast forwarding, um, when the industry got a little slower, you have to reinvent yourself. So I went to UCLA to study film scoring and met a few people there. And that turned into, hey, I know this guy. So a couple of years ago, a friend of mine who was doing, I think he was doing Dreamgirls at the time, or the Motown musical. He had called me and said the musical director for Cal State Long Beach's theater department, he just left. And this semester, they need to put on a musical. And that's important for the students that are graduating. And it's just part of their curriculum for the theater department. So I interviewed with them over there, and they liked me. They liked what I did. And I did this musical called Bubbly with, a mixed cast of seniors and, I don't think there were any freshmen, but very talented people. And that turned into me getting a call from um, Kathy Rigby's company, which is called, oh my goodness, McCann Rigby, I believe. Anyway, they were doing their version of Ain't Misbehaving. So they called me in on that from my work with Cal State Long Beach. And, we started rehearsals and it had a great cast and everything. But that's pretty much how it happened. But right around that time, I started to get busy with touring again. And, we still keep in touch. But, I'm now with Morris Day and the Times. So that takes up a good amount of my schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As a music director, what are your goals to make sure you accomplish getting the best out of your musicians? And then how do you choose the musicians as well?
Mhm. Well, one of the things as a musical director, I started with Troop and fast forward to Casey and JoJo. I wasn't the original musical director. Daryl Woolfolk, excellent drummer, was the original musical director from the first album. But there was a little hiatus after the third album. I think we did the second album, um, wrote and produced with them, but they did a reality show called Casey and JoJo Comes Clean. And some of the stuff was filmed here at the studio, but they want to do a big show at the end. Like the last episode was going to be the reunion show, and Mr. Dalvin and, you know, um, other people that they've worked with came on stage and did a couple of numbers. It was really cool. It's out there on YouTube, and I think even not VH1, but maybe TV1 or one of the other networks. They'll show it occasionally. But I had to pick some cats because the original band wasn't available. So you go from a pool of who you know that you have a good reputation with, a good chemistry with, to who they may know. You know, it's all very close knitted, and there's so many cliques here in LA, and people don't want to admit it, but it is very cliquish here in LA.
Yeah.
But some cats I see on the road and they live here in LA. We know of each other, but we've never worked with each other.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. But you really find out who's who at a good rehearsal. And I love to rehearse.
Yeah.
And you know, it doesn't matter if you know how to read or you don't. I mean, I do charts. So, I'll give you charts on the iPad or print it out, whatever you might need. But if you have good ears and you can dissect the music and listen to it, you're on my team.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Who are I know you mentioned earlier we talked about Stevie.
Yeah.
We talked about some of those early masters behind the boards. Right now, currently today, who are you inspired by, or who are you listening to when you're not making your own music or producing someone else? Who do you like when your chill time? who does Chris, unwind or listen to or favorite artists or inspired by?
Yeah. Um, Interesting. Well, I'm gonna try to answer that question real quick. I still listen to the old classics because
Yeah,
the old classics are what the new kids are listening to get their inspiration. And I appreciate that. But a couple years ago, when Bruno Mars first came out, I said, "Man, there's something really cool about this cat." You know, um, when Legacy came out, loved it. Her,
yeah,
um, actually Taylor Swift, because she has such volume and she knows her audience
mhm,
and she writes to her audience, man.
yeah,
And I've never been to a concert, but I sat in the live movie in a big uh, theater with great sound. And it's like, okay, this is that experience. And I saw mothers and daughters sitting next to me all around singing all the songs.
yeah,
You got two generation of people singing the lyrics. And they knew that stuff,
yeah,
so you got to give props to that.
yeah,
Um, I am going back and rediscovering old people. I don't mean, age wise. I mean records that have been out there for a long time that I just glossed over, because I have more time to listen sometimes when I'm on the plane or when I'm in the hotel room waiting for sound check or whatever. I've gone back and listened to old records like from the Platters, man. I've listened to some of the 50s stuff, some of the um, stuff that, Ike Turner was playing keyboards on before Ike and Tina Turner review, that kind of stuff, Lionel Hampton stuff, just the art of the music and really getting back into some even old Quincy stuff, Quincy Jones stuff. But I look at the playlist or the top 10 today, and some of the music I could listen to, but some of it is just so oh my God, I'm gonna get some haters for this. But some of the music is just so generic. You could place anyone's face on that, and it would be that.
yeah,
When I came from a culture that you identified with who the artist was. I mean, you had a lot of female artists, but you would never confuse Aretha Franklin with Minnie Riperton.
yeah,
You would never confuse Peabo Bryson with Luther Vandross, you know. Um, and I'm still looking for a band, cats that play and sing, and do it all. I miss mid condition. In fact, somebody was talking to me before we started today, and they said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "I'm really looking for a band like Mid Condition or Chicago or Rufus and Shaka, where I could take what I've known, give it to them, give them some studio time, and let them,
cut
really
loose.
learn how to make music."
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, that's
if you
awesome,
know of
man.
anybody, inbox me on Messenger. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man, for sure, for sure. Is there anybody out there that you would have wanted to produce that you haven't yet, or somebody that you say, oh, "Man,
Oh,
I
good
wish I
question. Good
could."
question. Um, I feel that I could actually do some good work with Elton. I feel Barbara
Okay,
Streisand, I could do
okay,
some good work with. Um, because, oh man, I could hear Barbara singing a really cool dance number, not over singing it,
yeah,
but putting that Streisand attitude with it. And you got that 808 and that four on the floor thing going on. Man, I got something for Barbara Streisand. I do.
yeah. I bet. The man said he got something for Barbara.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and believe it or not, Maya Rudolph, I would love to work with Maya Rudolph.
Okay, okay,
Um, she does have a Prince tribute band.
yeah.
Oh, hey, Maya, I'm in the family, baby. Come on, give me a call. No, but I think Maya Rudolph has a voice that's been untapped. I would
Yeah,
like to work with her. Um, man, who haven't I worked with? Um, if given the chance, I think Dua Lipa. Um, I could do something with I'd love to work with Kelly Clarkson. She's got a great range.
Okay.
She's got some amazing uh mobility. She doesn't oversing, but she gives it enough of that thing.
Yeah.
She sings a great melody. I love a melody.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. I had the opportunity to check out some new tracks that you did with your brother Zac Harmon, man, The Lonely Rider and then The Stop the Killing. Uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, which I dug very much, man. Talk a little bit about these new tracks and how you come together and put those two projects together.
Well, Zach reinvented himself a while ago.
Yeah.
As I was reinventing myself from the singer, I mean, from the songwriter, producer,
Yeah.
to the musical director, touring musician, he was becoming a jazz artist.
Yeah.
No, excuse me, a Southern soul blues artist.
Right.
So I've worked with Zach, from his first album to the last. And I'm always, even if I'm not, writing everything with Zach, I'm mixing it or I'm editing it, you know. So this album, which is probably his sixth, I said, Zach, do what you want to do. Stop trying to, you know, pander to the record company or the demographics. You've done all of that. Let this be a statement, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and the song um Stop the Killing just seemed right. And even though we cut it last year and it was released this year, it still has that current message, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did the video, and this is the first time that I've, written a treatment for a video and produced it to a certain point. And I worked with a great cinematographer, um, and he's just fantastic. And we were able to do two videos of that uh, from that album, So Conley Abrams is the brother. And I remember him from being a studio engineer, working, bouncing from studio to studio. And he was one of the cats that we ended up working with, and then come full circle, a decade or two later, and he's reinventing himself as a cameraman, director of photography.
Yeah.
He was a great director, man. He put it together. He edited the thing, and it looks good. So you can check it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
Zac Harmon, Stop the Killing, and also The Lonely Rider. And that was a song where Zach and I think the record company president or owner started writing, and they had this thing, and the verses were cool, but they did not have a good chorus. And once I heard what Zach was doing, because I was in Dallas at his place, and it's like, I know exactly what this needs. And I was really feeling the Eagles, man. And thank God I got a chance to see them when they were in Vegas. But that was what I was pulling from.
Mm.
So, we just have a different sounding album.
Yeah.
We did some classic, Southern soul dance music. And I even did a little bit of that Minneapolis funk on the record.
Yeah.
Uh yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
good stuff, man.
y'all
Good
check it
stuff.
out. And it's also released on vinyl for you vinyl heads out there, you young kids are rediscovering turntables. Yes, it's called Florida's Child. And no, I'm sorry, Florida's Boy. Florida was Zach Harmon's mom. So the album is in dedication to her because we lost her recently. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Pick that up, man. It's dope. Those videos and those songs and the whole project is good. It's just a good project all around. Good stuff.
Yeah. By the
Now,
way, while we're on the subject of that, there's another project that Zach and I, it's actually a book with a companion CD
okay.
called, yeah, the book is called Jacktown, USA. And the
Jack
writers
Danielson.
are Kamel King and Jolie.
Okay.
And there's a chapter on Zac, and there's a few, words from me in there as well. But it's focusing on the musicians and the legacy of Jackson, Mississippi. And we cut a new record on that. That's really nice. So y'all check that out.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I noticed you've been using the Roland D50 a lot lately. Is that your
Oh, so you
go-to?
can hear that.
Is that your go-to right now?
Uh, you know, it's like everything old is new again.
Yeah.
I love that creamy D50. In fact,
Yeah.
that bad boy is right here. And I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I'm so into the D50
Hmm.
that I not only program from the screen, but I do have the programmer for it.
Dang.
So this allows me to get to all the
Yeah.
parameters really easy. So this is a great thing. And yes, that's why this board is out real handy. And
Yeah.
it's one of my go-to things.
Yeah. Did you ever have or do you have the JX3P or did you ever try that board?
Oh, absolutely. In
Yeah, that was
fact,
one of my favorite ones too.
I love that board. You could hear that board on Atomic Dog.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That one voice is definitely straight patch from that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Zac Harmon and I used to have a studio in LA. And then when he decided to move to Dallas, Texas, he took some of the gear and I kept some of the gear here and I built a studio around it. And he did the same. So he had the JX 3P.
Uh,
I got the Juno 60 and I still use the Juno 60 for a lot of those old analog
nice.
sounds.
Another classic. I love that one too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Now I know you've been extremely busy, but within the last several years, man, you've hooked up with my brothers, Morris Day and the Time, and you've kind of taken the synthesizer keyboard seat there. Talk a little bit about your entry into the legendary group there.
Man, I'm gonna have to
For some more of
hydrate.
that aid.
This is Gatorade. This ain't Alizé. I
Yeah,
know it
$8.
looks like Alizé, but it ain't. I'm just
It's
hydrating.
not it's
We're
not an
going through some.
Adios or Incredible Hulk.
No, we're going through a heat spell here in the
Where's
valley.
the ice, man? You need ice.
It melted, but I'm drinking it anyway. Mm. So I'm going to be real quick with this, but this is a good story.
Okay, cool deal.
I first met Morris Day and the Time and Prince when they were in Houston, 1984, 83, 84. It was the Triple Threat Tour.
Okay.
And at the summit, which is now a mega church, that was the venue that they were playing at. And I was an usher at the summit. So I got a chance to be there for sound check, slap dap with a couple of people. Prince walked past me. I said, "Hey, Prince." He just looked at me, didn't even say anything. He was just playing controversy on sound check, walking around the place. And he stood back with me for a while. And I said, "Yeah, that's funky." And he just went on like that with his pursed lips. So fast forward to the time when they were working with the Pandemonium album. We were at flight time, and Jimmy and Terry were putting the finishing touches on Pandemonium. And that was, I think, 90 or 91. I think the album came out in 93, if I'm not mistaken. Did it?
Ammonium 90.
90. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was maybe 1990 when
Mhm.
we were there then. And I had met everybody, the whole band, Monty and everybody.
And that was the first time you met all of them then.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I didn't meet everybody back in the 80s, but I met
Okay.
everybody then,
Okay.
and got to hear some of the stuff that they were working on. And that was great. So fast forward 30 years, and I get the word that Monty, the original keyboard player that's been playing with them for, the last 30 years or so, he's thinking about retiring from the band. And it's like, oh my God, I would be perfect. That would be my perfect gig, because I wasn't really working with anybody. And I was already God had me in a Prince tribute band
Oh,
with a great
wow.
Prince performer named Julian Stefani, who's no longer with us.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
brother passed away from a brain tumor.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, God rest his soul. But
Absolutely.
it's like that got me back digging into the keys and getting these sounds up, for the Prince and the Time thing. And Ricky Freeze worked with Zach and I back in the 90s. Um, like soon after he was doing the Daisies with Morris,
Hmm.
we were writing for some artists that were on. Actually, we did a song I think with Five Star, and did something with a couple of artists that were on a development deal on Capitol and a few other labels. But we were working with each other, and Ricky was like really close to the studio and everything. So that relationship was there. So, Zach put a call in, I think, to Ricky, or uh, Zach told me about it first, and then I called Ricky, and then I said, "Hey, man, I'm with you. Let me get in. I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll audition. I'll do this and do that." So it was no audition. It was like you're on the next gig. Oh my God. Talk
Mm.
about sweating bullets. Thank God I brought two suits with me because we were on a cruise ship and it was rough, man. Morris wasn't feeling well because the ship was just rocking so much, and the boards were like almost sliding off the keyboard stands, and not really understanding everything that Monty was playing, because some of the videos you can't hear the keyboards very well. And I was going off of YouTube videos. But thank God for Freeze just telling me, hey, you got to do this and you got to do that. And he helped me get some of the dance steps. He'd come over to my house and show me a couple of steps. So I had an indication of what it was, but it wasn't until the Valentine's Day gig that I really felt, you know, um, like I knew what the show was, because unfortunately there were no rehearsals. They were already on automatic pilot with
Yeah.
date. And
Yeah.
this is right before COVID hit. This is like the end of I think 2019 or 2020. So I think the middle of 2020, COVID started. I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. 2020 is
Yeah.
about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I got a real cute picture on Facebook with me at flight time with Morris. And I'm standing next to Morris, and Morris is doing his thing like that. And then 30 years later, same picture, me standing next to Morris doing this. So it's a cool, then and now picture. You can check that out
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
Facebook
Full
page.
circle, right?
Yeah, yeah, isn't that amazing? Full
Mm.
circle. But man, that was the hot seat. And everybody said, Tori said, man, you got the hottest seat in the band now, besides Bean, because Monty was playing so many parts. But the good thing about how I grew up, uh, trying to be a multi-keyboardist like, Herbie and Daryl Dragon and Chick, sometimes you got to play lead parts in your left hand, and lead parts in your right hand simultaneously.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped me with what I do at the time.
Yeah. And dance at the same time too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, I heard all the stories. I'm sure
Yeah.
you have too.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like both hands are always working, because Prince would say, uh, Jimmy Jam, what are you doing with your other hand? You know, well, double
Yeah.
Monty, double this, do something, make it
Yeah.
better. Ding. Yeah, yeah, that was boot camp, man. First months with the time, man. Yeah, that was rough.
So there was no rehearsals. So you had already had an idea how to play most of their catalog before you got into the band. So it was just like, okay, as the songs come, you know where to go.
Yeah, but the problem is that I had, and also that a lot of these other musicians that are out there on the internet doing Prince and time music, you're playing it wrong. I was playing it wrong. I had to
Mm.
have Morris would come over to the keyboard with me and say, "What is that you're playing? Oh no, it's not quite right. Play it again. I think it's this." So Morris, man, Morris was on top of it. Thank you, Morris, for not firing me that first few
Very
months.
cool. Very
because
cool.
I was dedicated. I knew that this is a good fit for me. I could really help the band legacy. I wouldn't tarnish the brand or anything like
Yeah,
that. But yeah, I love those guys, man. The whole band, I love them. And it
yeah.
was great when we did Taste of Minnesota. Were you there last year in June?
No, I didn't go last year.
Okay.
No,
All
no.
right. Because that was when Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Jerome Benton were on stage with us. It
Mm,
felt great. And that was a great party. That
yeah, I
was
can
wonderful.
imagine.
Good to
That's
see all those brothers again. And they all gave me love. And, you know, yeah,
yeah.
they're the cats, man. They're
Yeah,
the cats.
definite full circle moment there. Gotta love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we go, man, I have to get a Tina Marie story from you. I know that you did some work with the legendary Tina Marie, man. You got a Tina Marie story?
Yes, I have a Tina Marie combination Rick James story.
Let's have
All
it.
right. So we're at rehearsal at Third Encore. And I guess the news gets out that Rick James is going to be joining the tour. So we get people coming in like Sugarfoot from Ohio Players, and I think Johnny Gill might have stopped, and just all kind of people
Mhm.
stepping in for rehearsal. So the first time I meet Rick James, he didn't even bother to know my name. He said, "What's up, keyboard man? What's up?" So we went over a few songs, and he said, "Yeah, yeah, you got it." And then we went into the lounge, and he played a videotape for us. This is before Dave Chappelle's show came out. This was like 6 months before. And it was the whole "I'm Rick James, bitch," and all the
Yeah,
stories about it. And God bless his soul. He said, "Yeah, cocaine is a hell of a drug, hell of a drug." So, I had an opportunity. We were tour busing it for a minute, and you know, Rick and Teena shared a bus, and Teena's daughter, Alia Rose, was on there, and I think her manager, tour manager. And then she had asked me, she had met my mom, and she had asked me to, join them on the bus for, a couple of trips. And let's just say that there was a substance that was on the table in there that only one person was indulging in. And every time, you look up, that substance, that little mountain would get lower and lower and lower and lower. And yeah, he'd say, cocaine is a motherfucker. Oh, I don't know if I can use that on you. No, but
yeah, you good.
anyway, but Teena was so generous with the time she gave you on stage, always acknowledging you on stage. And it was just beautiful years we spent. Um, and that turned into a bond with the other musicians. Doug Grisby was her musical director, and he's no longer here.
Mm.
But you know, um, Tyrone Griffin, who was Ty Dolla Sign's daddy, he was playing trumpet with us, and Dave Stark and Noriko Orling and Chad Wright, keyboards and drums, and they got married during that tour. So it was just a lot of love that was going on, you know. But I'll never forget how I heard about Teena passing away.
Yeah.
Um, I had just been at her house like around Thanksgiving, and they were working on an album that I don't even know if it was released, but there was this one song for Smokey Robinson, and I had did a couple of keyboard parts on that, and we had hugged and took a couple of pictures. So fast forward to doing a return at Best Buy in Sherman Oaks, and I'm going down the escalator to the TV department to see what buys I can get. And I think it was either Sue Ann Carwell or one of the other girls that was really close to her that also sang background. And she said, "Did you hear about Teena?" I said, "What do you mean? Where are you, Chris?" "I'm at Best Buys. I'm returning something and I might buy a TV." And I got the news. And when I got to the landing, I just turned around and went up the escalator, just numb, walking to my car and just sitting in my car and just tears welling up,
Yeah.
because we didn't expect this at
Yeah.
all. And
Yeah.
she was so vibrant and alive and colorful. Um, and I think her mom was there, and of course her daughter, was there at that Thanksgiving. And it's like, oh my God, like a month ago, I was just with her, and we were
Yeah.
just going to do something after, the holidays.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was just, I need a break from people passing away, man, because a lot of artists, including, one
Yeah.
of the members of Five Star, he passed away, and then
I saw that. Yeah.
Walter Scott passed away, and we
Yeah.
wrote and produced for the Whispers,
Yeah.
and it's we. I just need a break from that, man. We don't need to lose any more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was devastating. I still remember it like yesterday. And then it happened, like, what was it, Christmas Day or the day after Christmas or something like that? Or,
Yeah,
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 it was just like the timing was just like crazy when it happened. Like, wow.
yeah. Because
Mhm.
I was in the store the day after Christmas, and
Mhm.
that's why I found out. I found out so soon. Um, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, definitely one of the treasures of music that's sorely missed, man. Definitely.
yeah. I got
Yeah.
to show you one thing, and then I guess we'll conclude. But this is a good thing to conclude
Yeah.
on.
What you got, brother? What
Uh,
you got?
Tina and I were close, and we didn't. Oh, it must have been moved. Oh, I remember now. When we got the word that we may have to evacuate for the fires out here, I packed up some stuff I
Oh,
didn't want
okay.
to lose, and
Okay.
one of them was this wonderful picture of Tina Marie. And I normally keep it right on the other side of my Leslie speaker or someplace like that. But thank God I did move it, because it was one of those valuable things that I didn't want to lose.
And you said that was the last picture that you guys took?
No, but it was a picture that she gave to me for Christmas
Got it.
that
Okay.
was just a special gift and a beautiful mirror.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh,
So,
yeah.
it was signed, a special message to me. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
always keep it in the studio live room for inspiration.
Yeah. That's a keepsake. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it is a keepsake.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt.
So
Yeah.
listen, I'd love for us to get together and do this again.
Yeah, absolutely,
Uh,
man.
you know,
It's a pleasure and an honor. I'm so glad we finally got a chance to sit down and break bread and get into your interesting and amazing career and see what's going on with you and what's been going on with you.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
before we depart, man, if you don't mind, my brother, if you can go ahead and let my viewers know where they can find you, any Instagram, Facebook, or any handles if you want to go ahead and give out for your music and everything.
Okay, wonderful. So first of all, uh, that record, vinyl, CD, streaming, whatever you want. Zac Harmon, Florida's Boy. All right. Make sure you get that. You can find me, of course, on Facebook, Christopher Troy, producer, on Instagram and Facebook, working on some other social media things. And I will be possibly doing some tutorials online of the art of audio recording, both analog and digital. A couple of producer friends of mine are working on some things. And also, me and one of the other members of the Time, Padre, and a few other members of the Funk Society, we're going to be doing some Minneapolis music and tutorials through maybe the possible Guitar Center chain. So that might be something that local people
Nice.
go into and hear some of the funk broke down. So we'll see what happens with that.
All right, man. We're looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to it. And I thank you so much, man. And look forward to having you back again. Ladies and gentlemen, keyboardist, producer, arranger, performer with the time, my brother Christopher Troy. We thank you so
Uh,
much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
spending
much for
time.
having me. God bless, bruh.
Thank you. Appreciate it.